We are live. Good morning. I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to kind of get on. I'm so excited to have you ladies on with me today. I cannot wait to hear your story. I cannot wait till we can just kind of, connect with each other here. I want to take a few minutes. Like, I think that I want to make sure I always shout out my husband because he is the reason that I get to come down here and act like I have all my stuff together. He makes sure that everything is together for me. And I'm just so appreciative of that. He makes me look so good down here. So thank you, honey. He makes all my flyers. He puts all my stuff together, and I'm so appreciative of that. I just am. Thank you. Uh, this is a really good one today. We're going to talk about grief and infertility. We're going to get started. I hope we're going to get started in a few minutes. I'm trying to give some more people some time to get on. And so if you're in here, just say hello. Let's get the morning started. I know, is everybody almost ready for Christmas vacation? Have y'all gotten your shopping done? Have have you guys gotten your Lauren? I don't know, Kendra, if you have ever seen, you need to follow Lauren if you haven't. She has like the most whimsical house you will ever see. She
Yes,
does the season up. You hear me? She's going to have a tree in every room. She has all the things. All the things.
trees.
And so, Kendra, you got your Christmas stuff up?
No, but I'm so excited and I really want to put it up today.
Yes, I do too. I know we're getting ready to go out of town, but like I really want to I'm trying to get my mantle right. And so right now, the way the mantle is out here looking, it's not doing it. We haven't started. And every time I think about it, I'm like, what would Lauren do right now? What would Lauren do? WWLD right here.
I look back at posts where I've done mantles and I'm like, oh, that was my mantle. I've come a long way.
I love it. If you're here, please say good morning. We want to get this party started. We want to get into it. The holidays, a lot of times people talk about the joy of the season, but in my experience of working with people that suffer from severe and persistent mental illness, the holiday season is the worst time for them. People that deal with depression or anxiety, the holidays are some of the worst times in their life. Family separation, grief, pain, and loss. And I kind of just want to get into it because I feel like we leave them out during the holidays and we just don't talk about what the holiday season, what type of pain could come with that. Good morning, Shwanda. What does it look like when you're in the holiday season going through pain? So I kind of just want to get into it. I have Lauren Wright Michaelshin with me today, and I have Kendra Cutler with me today, and I want to get into their stories. I hope you guys got your tissues with you because I do. I have my box right here. Just in case. I don't know if we're gonna need it, just in case. I got my box of tissues. Today is a special edition where we're going to talk about infertility and we're going to talk about grief. And I want my ladies here, my special mamas that I have with me, to be able to share their hearts with you. So we're going to get started and I'm going to introduce them and I want them to just introduce themselves. So we'll start with you, Lauren.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lauren Wright. My Pastor Jen asked me to write a bio and I was like, oh my word. My Instagram bio is short and sweet. It says I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a widow, and I'm a warrior. And I became a widow at the age of 29. I had 2 small children. One was 3, one was 7 months. And my husband, Anthony, died tragically in a work accident. And it forever changed my life. I am now a wife again. I have another daughter, or a daughter now. So 3 children. And the journey that grief took me on definitely gave me the title or the adjective warrior. It's been a story of redemption, hope, but it was hard fought.
I love that. And I was reading some statistics that there's like only 12% of widows are under the age of 35. So you kind of fell right into this percentage where maybe you would feel really isolated because everybody, you know, there's just not a lot. I don't know. When I met you and the more I've heard your story, I think I've seen now through you a lot of young widows, but still that statistic kind of shocked me. Like, man, there's only 12% of widows under the age of 35. Kendra, introduce yourself. Tell me about you.
Hi, I was the same way, Lauren. She asked for a bio. I'm like, do you really need a bio? Let me see what I can
I really do.
But my name is Kendra Cutler. I am the wife of Alex Cutler, who, just like Pastor Bibb, he keeps me, okay? He keeps me together.
Listen.
But we are the proud parents of our sweet girl, Chloe, who is now 8 months, and we've been married for 9 years. So she's a long waited for manifested promise, I would say. So we are grateful, and no matter what people say about parenthood or new moms and stuff like that, this is blissful for me, and this is a great and fulfilling time. So I'm excited to, just share some insight on infertility and to give hope and to give knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me.
I'm so thankful you guys are here. And, again, I'm reading a statistic about 1 in 5 women that really struggle with infertility, but still I feel like we don't really talk enough about the isolation and the pain and struggles that infertility really take women through. Mm-hmm. When you think about, Lauren, when you think about what it means to be a young widow, what type of isolation and what type of pain do you feel like people missed from what that means? And what I mean by that is, the insensitive remarks that people could make, the pain and shame of even what it meant to go into being a new single mom. I remember this is kind of a lighthearted way about it, but I remember when me and my husband first got married and we went to this church and they didn't believe in wedding rings, right? And so suddenly I found myself like not wearing my wedding ring and going into places. And I'm like, people think I'm a single mom. Nothing wrong with single moms out there. But I just remember like the struggle of like, but I'm married, but what does it mean to suddenly be thrust into, I'm a single mom. I'm out here having to do parenthood on my own. I'm having to create new normals. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Sure. It's a really, it's hard, because death greets everyone, right? Whether it be a grandparent, a pet, anything, grief is going to come to everybody. And so I feel like that a lot of times it got discounted. People would be like, well, I remember when my brother died. And I was like, sir, this is not your brother. Like, this was my husband. Like, it's just different in my opinion. Yeah. And so and when you talked about being a single mom again, literally until death greets you, you don't realize how final it is. You don't realize, like, we know like death is final, but until the weeks and months come and you never hear from that person again, your mind knows that you're not going to, but your heart doesn't. And so it's this journey in this constant back and forth. So then you throw in, I have a 3-year-old who's asking questions, is my daddy coming back today? And you have to look at him and say, no, son, like and then, because you have to be honest, but all those things are just so hard, and you feel isolated because I didn't know anybody at that point who had been a widow at my age. I didn't know anybody. Obviously, I know people now, but at that moment in time, the church I was a part of, my family, no one knew how to deal with it because no one had ever been there before. And so they say all the things, this is not goodbye, it's see you later. This is not, joy will come in the morning. And it's like, okay, well, it's morning.
And I do not feel joy.
And it's just, and when you talk about it, being a single mom, I remember I had to sign Sawyer up for daycare, and it asked you to list out parent information. And it was like, he has a dad. His dad's just not here. And so I remember sitting down with my grief counselor and being like, I need to write Anthony's name on paperwork. And she was like, I totally appreciate that. And she was like, so what I recommend is you write Anthony's name, and then you just put in parentheses deceased. And I was like, because that makes it any better, right? But it meant that someone knew like that Anthony existed, because I still needed people to know that like he existed. It's so complex, because I remember going, there's so many things that happen in the days after. And I had to settle things at the bank, and you have to settle things here, and you have to go pick up a death certificate. And it's just, you have no time to really sit and think. And I went to the bank, and they were like, you have to take his name off the account because he doesn't exist anymore. And I remember standing there. She didn't mean it. She's right. But I was like, he might not exist to you, but he very much still exists to me. And she just kind of looked at me and was like, I'm sorry. And I couldn't even handle the bank at the moment. I had to leave. But all those things, I wish that, and what I try to do now is to not discount someone's pain, to not try to go alongside them and say, well, when my grandma died, this is how I felt. Or throw a verse at it, And so I remember I talked to Pastor Jen not too long ago. I sat in a funeral of another tragic death. And, the preacher was just, he said all the things I guess you're supposed to say. And Pastor Jen said, it seems empathetic, it seems, because death is so final that you're just trying to empathize. What would you want someone to say? And what I told Pastor Jen, it still makes me emotional, but I would want someone to come alongside me and say, this is going to be really hard. Not joy comes in the morning. Joy might not come for a lot of mornings. It will come, but this is going to be hard. You're going to have to walk this out. But God's going to be right there with you. Not instead of glossing over it with like, we'll see him again one day. When does that day come? I have to live right now. I have to look at my babies and say, we're in this alone, but we're going to get through it together.
Yeah.
So just really tell me that it's going to be hard. Tell me that, but to lift my eyes up, because that's where my help comes from. Because I honestly say that when it got really dark, it was in all that darkness of grief, of guilt, of all the things that I found the most hope and healing. And like courage was birthed in me in the darkness.
Yeah. I love that. And I think it is so important for us not to gloss over our pain when we are struggling or we are hurting, and to know that I sometimes think that as believers, we do gloss over that pain because of our belief pattern and system, that we think like, oh, because my husband died, it had to be that I did something wrong. I deserved it. I'm a sinner. I did something to cause this to happen, versus being able to sit in the pain with our Savior and say, oh God, here I am in the middle of my pain, and here you are. You are with me.
And I think just to tag on to that, that was definitely a part of my story. Feeling like this was somehow my fault, like I wasn't living right, so Anthony paid the price, and having people come to me and be like, God will do whatever it takes to get your attention. And it's like, also I caused my husband's death, and so then that added all these other things. But also knowing, finding God for yourself. When I I can't even begin to tell y'all how many times I questioned. I told God I was angry, like, you knew where I was and you killed my husband. Like, why would you do that? I spewed disdain, I spewed doubt, but he never left me.
Amen. But I think that's so important to be able to say, I was angry. I felt isolated. I felt shame. In the middle of all this pain, here is how that made me feel. And we're going to try to change the narrative on that today. How do people sit with you in your pain? Kendra, 1 in 5 women struggle with infertility. Tell me your story. Tell me about what it meant for you. How long did you try to start a family? What are some things that you faced? And even, did you feel the same type of shame or pain as Lauren of like, what have I done to cause this? What type of sin was I in? Like, did you also go through that? I want to talk about that. And good morning to everybody who's saying good morning and logging on with us.
Yes, so me and my husband, this will be 9 years married since this past August. And we have a sweet little girl, as I mentioned before, who is our whole entire heart. But that was 8 years of trying to have a child. And I think the main thing is the stigmatism of infertility, or people thinking that they know and not really knowing what infertility consisted of, um, or just even facts about it. So for me and my husband, he's my best friend. So life with him has been good. We knew life together, we did life together, and so we actually just kind of got caught in that norm. We always hoped to be with child and to have a child. We always prayed to be with child. We heard a gazillion prophecies about us having a child, and people praying. But for me, I just got numb. I got extremely numb to the aspirations of having a child, or to, I could see it. I could see myself holding a child. I could see myself raising a child, but it was so far and it was so norm for it not to have happened, that I was just numb to the fact that we were not pregnant, that we did not have a child. And holidays, family gatherings, and things of that nature was always difficult, because Alex and I, like, next year, we're gonna have a kid here. Next year it's gonna be different. And then next year comes around, and we're in the same spot. So sitting with the reality of not seeing the manifestation was most difficult. I didn't necessarily blame myself, but I did question, like, why or what. But I also lived in I want to choose the right word, negligence, in a sense. We had our one-liners whenever, when are you gonna have a kid? Where's the baby? Oh, when God says, and God's timing, or when we're ready, things like that. And although it wasn't God's timing, being able to move past just saying it and really moving in that faith, really putting action to that faith, and really going deeper than living day to day as if oh, we want to have a kid, but we're not pregnant. We don't know why we're not pregnant, and we're gonna keep believing, just keep going. So I think growing to a place to learn where belief is different, is more than just saying things but not putting action to it.
Got you. So what are some things that you wish maybe that you would have done differently?
Looking back, although 8 years is a long time,
Yeah.
the way things played out was perfect. But I wish I would have just gained knowledge sooner, and not grazed over it. For me, a coping for me is like guarding up or putting to the side, not feeling, numbing, or
Yeah.
forgetting certain things. So I don't, even though it felt beneficial, it was not helpful in
Yeah.
any sense.
Yeah.
Because we were still in the same situation. But I think that if I would have known sooner, I could have saved myself a lot of heartache, because
Right.
Pastor Jen, she was there. Although every month your cycle comes on, every month your cycle comes on. But when you're wanting to be pregnant, when you're wanting to be with a child, every symptom of pregnancy,
Yeah.
every sign of pregnancy. And so I had moments of thinking, okay, oh my gosh, Alex, this may be it. This is it. This is it. Because I know my body, I know what my body's doing, and it'll be a sign or a symptom of pregnancy, only to find out 5 days later that I'm not pregnant.
Oh,
And you start to live with that disappointment. You start to live not just with it, but in that disappointment. So that discourages you. You just keep going day to day without action, without
yeah.
action. For me, although it was 8 years, there was only two times where I broke down. I broke down, and Pastor Jim was there for one of those breakdowns. Because you go through the dysfunction of living in disappointment, and then sometimes it just hits ahead. And it was another time I knew I was pregnant. You couldn't tell me different. Everything, every sign, symptom was there. I knew I was pregnant and I wasn't. And so sitting in the spot or the place of accepting the fact that it's not moving the way that I'm
Yeah.
expecting it to, or
Yeah.
things are not coming about, this what we're doing is not working. So sitting with that realization and that it's just not my time yet, or at that time it was not my time yet, was heartbreaking to say the least.
And I think it even correlates with what Lauren was talking about, like the finality that Anthony is never coming back. Every cycle was like the finality of there is
Every,
no baby.
yes, every cycle,
And
every month.
yeah, I can only imagine the pain of like wanting that and then having to sit there and say, hey, again, and just the journey of again and again. And I think that's the other thing. What could people, you know, because even though you said you were kind of your journey was a little bit private and you didn't, I don't, you only had two breakdowns. What do you feel like people could have done? Because I can only imagine, because I see people do it now, the insensitivity of you and Alex being young, or, the insensitivity of you not having babies and somebody saying something like, well, you guys can adopt.
Yeah. So a lot of times, and I had to grow to realize that, people don't mean harm,
Yeah.
although it comes off extremely harmful. So it wasn't a week to go by where somebody's not like, so it wasn't even you can adopt, but it was the common question of why haven't you had a child yet? Why are you
Oh.
not pregnant yet?
Mm-hmm.
Where's
Mm-hmm.
where's our baby?
Oh,
And
yeah.
not and again, I am a pretty private person. I do share, and people that are close to me know certain things that are going on in my life, but not having answers, and then not feeling the need to have to continuously explain.
Yeah.
So just like you said, every month when that cycle came, that wasn't, people were excited to see their cycle. A lot of people were.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But for me, it was a constant reminder. And then when people, loved ones, and people that you don't see often, came and asked about, why are you not pregnant? Why do you all not have a child? Where's the kid at? As if it was our choice or by choice.
Right.
Was difficult because again, that comes to the ignorance in a sense, and it's not their
Yeah.
fault. But it lacks empathy.
What do you think what would have been easier for you? Like, how do you feel like in the middle, even without telling your private story, even with that, what would have been some things that somebody could have said? Because I think that's also what I want to get out today. I want people to be able to walk away from this, number one, knowing they should not be ashamed of their pain, knowing two, that God is with us right in the middle of our pain. But three, here are two women standing here being able to say, here are even some, maybe don't say this, but say that. What are some things that people could have came alongside you maybe and said that would have helped you?
So for me, not actually asking where is the child or why, but if you notice, and sometimes people don't think that far, so I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
But if you notice that someone's with child, just being mindful of how you go about asking, or
Yeah.
just asking if you could be there for them. Because for me, it was someone, my mentor and pastor, who came along, let me know it's okay, and that it's more prevalent and frequent than you realize. Like,
Yeah.
it's like a taboo in a sense, because people don't talk about the fact, that they deal with infertility. which is you've been trying for a year.
Yeah.
Okay. So people have been way outside of a year. You've been trying for a year and you haven't been able to conceive or conceive naturally, I would say. But it is I personally don't recommend asking any woman, when are you going to have a kid? So I don't really have a good verbiage for that
All
because
right.
some people choose to have kids, some people choose not to, some people want to, and some people can't. So personally, I try to stay out of people's business in that regards, but celebrate them when they're pregnant, celebrate them even if they don't, want to conceive. But just being mindful of people, their situations, their mental and emotional spaces,
Yeah.
and not being insensitive to that.
So you're even saying being sensitive enough to say, hey, let's just not ask that question altogether. That would have helped me if people would have just not asked that question altogether.
Or just come like, hey, are you okay? Like, not you haven't had a kid, are you okay? But everything okay, just to open that door,
Yeah.
conversation if somebody feels open to that. But I personally do not recommend asking about anyone's womb.
Look, that's important. That's
Right.
really, really important. And I think one of the things that is so I'm going to use important, but one of the things really important for us to do is create relationships with people. You can't roll up on people and be like, "Ooh, where's the baby?"
Yeah.
Well, I think that it's a conversation starter, right? Someone gets married, that's kind of the next step. So that, I mean, and we've all been guilty of it, right? But when you've lived it, then it changes your perspective. And just like with grief, and I'm sure infertility, I feel like Western culture goes about things so wrong.
Yeah.
Just so, but that's all we know,
Yeah.
and 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 now in a time where we're so open, for lack of a better way to put it, we have social media and everybody, you feel like you know everything about someone's life, but you really don't.
You don't.
And so building those relationships, like, it goes so much deeper. And even in a church setting, asking someone out to lunch, giving them your phone number.
Yeah.
It's more than just, there's so many times where there's even memes about it where we say, let's get together soon. And then a year goes by and you see them again at Christmas and you're like, oh yeah, let's get together, and you never get together. But that's life, right? And I'm not discounting that. Life's busy. I'm guilty of that too, but really being intentional about those things, because to be honest, sometimes it is just a conversation starter. You just are like, oh, congrats on your marriage. You ready to have children?
Yeah.
And you don't really care. It's just, that's what you're supposed to say, right?
That's what you're supposed to say. So you think that you're supposed to say something into someone else, like the most painful thing you could be saying right now. Like, yeah, I'm 8 years in. Yeah, tell me about it, right? Like, please. And just, I think as a society, if we can, because you can't make everybody change, but individually, if you can think through a thing, it's like, maybe this is not the right question to ask a couple that's been married for 8-9 years that I don't know. I don't know them. I haven't taken the time to get to know them. Maybe this is not the best thing to say. So maybe it's like, you know what? So nice to meet you guys. Oh my gosh, you're a beautiful couple. Anything.
Wishing you the best.
Wishing you the best. Yeah. Until you actually take the time to get to know someone.
Yeah.
It's like when we look at relationships, we can even look at Jesus, the way he did. He was intentional in his relationships. Jesus had the 5,000, which he gave them like parables, right? It was enough to connect with him. Then he kept honing it in until he got to his disciples. And that's who got all the good stuff. That's who got all the intricate details of his life, right? And so it's like, how do we become intentional to create relationships? If we watch it, our Savior was a relationship builder. He did not go over to feed the 5,000 and then give them the depths of his soul. He gave them what they needed, which is food and a little story about who he is. But what he gave the disciples was, hey, I got something, walk with me, sup with me for an hour, get to know who I am, what I'm about, what I believe. Don't betray, but that was very relational. And I think it's important if we're going to encounter people as believers, that we take the time to get to know people. Or if we're not going to take the time to get to know them, and we're going to be on the outskirts of associates, that we don't ask them the deep questions. So it's like being intentional and being mindful. What does it mean to create relationship? And then what does it mean to, because I think it's some of the worst things, right? My husband is this way and I'll be, and I'm not. People used to tell us at our church, like, oh, Pastor Tim and Jen, we love you so much. And he'll be like, they don't even know me. They don't love me. I'm like, hey, they do. But he's like, no. And I'm very particular about who I tell I love them, because I do not want to do that surface stuff. He's like, they don't love me. They came here one Sunday. They don't love me. And it's like, oh, you know what? That's important. It's really important not to tell people just blasé, you love them. It's really important not to tell people blasé, I'm praying for you and you know good and well you're not. Yes. It's so important not to be blasé about people's pain and act like it matters when it doesn't. Not really, because you're going to go on about your life. And so as we are learning how, because also it's important to remember, you cannot take on everybody's pain in the world. So if you know someone lost their husband and you want to be empathetic for them, but you can't maybe you can't handle the depths of this woman's pain. So what can you do? What can you do? And it's like, maybe you can't come alongside them, but you can pray for them. You can even send a little card, note, or a letter. You can say, you know what? I really am praying for you, and do that. You really can. You can take a moment and say, God, I don't know this woman's story, but I know she's in pain. And I want to not just gloss over it. I want to be able to say, you know what? I prayed for you. Let me tell you how I became acquainted with Lauren. I grew up with Lauren in our unique church situation. So I knew her as a little girl. And then suddenly one day on Facebook, her story just went like viral on my page, you know, because all these people I was connected to. And so then people were putting their families, right? They were putting their husband, their kids on a photo, tagging her in it and being like, just praying for Lauren Eby right today and hugging my family closer. It infuriated me. Like, how dare you tag this girl in your whole put together family and say you're hugging your family tighter today? And I remember being like, so I just started praying for her. I would be in my car just praying for this girl, because I'm like, why are people so insensitive? Like, this is the most insensitive thing I have ever seen in my life, that you suddenly now want to attach her to your joy by your pain. And we still do this. You know, people like hugging my babies closer tonight, praying for the mamas that can't have them. What? Yeah. Like, don't do things like that, you know?
In addition, sorry. You were saying like learning how to build relationship and how to do that, because a lot of times the problem is people think they know, and it's okay to not know. It's okay to not understand and still be there for somebody. And I think that's just like those pictures that you're saying, like it comes off very insensitive, and it comes off, you know, harmful for
it's harmful. It really is. And so I just started praying for her and reaching out to her in her inbox. That's all. And it's like, we didn't know each other, but I was being intentional, not to be insensitive, but to say, hey, I'm thinking about you today. Hey, I'm praying for you today. Even Kendra, when I met you, you know, my first question to you wasn't, when are y'all having a baby? You know, it was getting intentional to get to know you, to hear your story, to hear your heart. And I think that is how you build with people. That is what you do. If you don't have the time to do it, don't invest in someone's story. You don't want to invest with people just so you can hear their, you know, their trauma. If you don't have the space and capacity, we'll say that. Mm-hmm. It's no sin that you don't have the space or capacity. Right. What it becomes is just insensitive. You know, it's insensitive when you don't have it, but you want to act like you do. Mm-hmm. You know, and so it's like how to make sure that if you are in if you are, I'm sorry, I'm trying to read comments and talk to y'all too. So it's like I was trying to look over here to read the comment, and then I can't read and talk at the same time. So this is what got me a little caught up here. But thank you to everybody. Yes, I'm gonna take a good one. It really comes from a place of ignorance. That's why we have these conversations are necessary. Yep. Yes. Being intentional in relationship building. Look, if you know that a woman has just lost her spouse, if I can say anything to you, it would be not to tag your husband in a photo and be like, oh, just praying for her today, hugging my husband tighter. That's terrible. Don't do that. It's totally insensitive. And then we do it, right? We do it in bigger levels, right? There's war in Ukraine and we're like, oh, so thankful to be an American citizen today. And it's like, that is not the time to be extra thankful to be an American today. It is so unnecessary for you to do that. It's like you can sit in someone's pain and say, praying for the Ukrainians, praying for a woman who has lost her husband during this season, and then pray for her. I think the holidays are a really tough spot to either be childless or to be husbandless, because the holidays are so intricately family tied. And I want you guys to talk about maybe just what was your first holiday, if you don't mind? Lauren, what was the first holiday like without Anthony?
So lots of anxiety led up to that holiday. You have small children. It's the joy of Christmas, and just like and my kids were so young. I mean, Bo was 7 months at that. And then I guess at Christmas time, he had just turned a year in September. So still not really aware of anything, and just I was still pretty wrapped up in depression. But I was like, okay, I had moved back home. So I had moved back home and was determined to just be me and the kids Christmas morning. And I woke up, I let the dogs out, and I literally opened up the front door. And first of all, let me back up and say that in death or grief, any sort of grief, until you've lived it, it's really hard to explain. But there are signs. There are just signs. I can't explain it. I remember when my friend's mom died in the October before Anthony's death, and she would tell me, oh, I see hearts and clouds. And I'm like, oh my God, she's losing it. She's losing it. Like, you really don't see hearts and clouds, right? You just don't. But if that's what helps get her through, God, send hearts and clouds, And so then I became a widow, and I started like seeing A's in clouds.
Wow.
It's really crazy, right? And so I was like, oh my God, I'm that person now. I'm that person now, And so yes. And so to rewind, rainbows were just very significant. Rainbows had never been significant in my life at all. But we were sitting at a construction site one day at a stoplight, and my mom was driving, and Sawyer spoke up in the back seat. Mind you, he was 4. And he said, my dad lives there. And I was like, okay, and he was like, Mommy, that's heaven. And I'm looking at this construction site like, okay. And I looked at my mom. I was like, what do we say? And he's like, my dad's going to come back, and he's going to be he's going to be a little boy, and he's going to teach me all about the colors of the rainbow. Oh. At that point, I'm sobbing. I'm like, what do you say to this? Like, so I looked to my mom and I'm like, Mom, please say something. Because at that point, I'm a puddle of tears. And from that point on, rainbows have just been very significant in our life. They come at like, I don't know. It's crazy. So that was in the summer. And I woke up that first Christmas without Anthony, Christmas 2015. I opened up the front door to let the dogs out. It was 7:30 in the morning, and there was a double rainbow out my front door.
Jesus.
And I gasped. I've never seen a rainbow on Christmas morning in my life. I haven't seen one since. And obviously, I know it rained the night before. It was like some random occurrence where there's just a rainbow. I mean, the situation was right, but literally, and peace just really, it was like this peace just washed over me. Like, I don't think that Anthony's watching us. He doesn't know that it's Christmas morning, but somebody is looking out for me, like this is a sign that I needed. And so the holidays, while they're joyful, while they're everything, they're quite painful, and they're a stark reminder of what you don't have sometimes. You get together, and my sister had her husband on Christmas, and just all the things. And so, sorry, my kids are coming
Yeah,
in.
we love it.
Love
Hi,
it.
babies.
Sorry. And so they just peace just comes somehow, some way. It's hard to explain until you've walked it out. And in that little corner of my heart that was so complex with grief and guilt and shame and questions and all the things, like in that little corner of my widow heart, like there was a peace that came. And every Christmas I think about that first Christmas without Anthony, and it's not the same. It's not, he's never going to be with us home for Christmas again, but somehow he's home, and I just find a peace in that, that we're somehow home together, and that's okay.
But I think that's beautiful. I think it's beautiful that you were able to, man, I'm so thankful that God settles us, that God is with us in the midst of our pain.
Much
and
about the
grief.
little things,
Yes.
every little detail.
Yeah.
That doesn't, things that didn't really mean a whole lot to anybody else, or if I told you, you'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
But every little detail, and just like Kendra was saying earlier, when had she known the day she got married to Alex that she'd have to wait 9 years to have a kid, it'd be a lot easier to handle.
Yeah.
Because you have, like, well, I'm gonna have to wait this out, but it's really gonna come. But when you say, oh, I trust God, I trust him, he's got a plan, I trust his plan, that's easy to say, but when you have to live that out, it's not all that easy sometimes.
It's not easy. And I even think, like, when we look through, for instance, I was talking to my husband this morning, right? And we were talking about David. And I was like, our brother David wrote the entire Psalms, the Psalms that we use to quote for certain things we're not supposed to use it for. There are Psalms, guys, you're not supposed to pray these Psalms, but we still like, God, step on my enemies, Father. Make my enemies my footstool. It's like, this is David's most depressed times. We're not supposed to pray these prayers. However, what I think the beauty is, in 123 Psalms, we were able to see our brother David, who is not the greatest person when you really like dissect his life, and that kind of what separates humanity from deity of God, and God was able to settle this man, to allow him. We don't know how long it took that man to write that journal of Psalms. We don't know how long he sat there in that grief. But in Psalm 23, which is a book that I'm reading right now, it's called The Lord is My Courage. And they say when that psalm says, he maketh him lie down in green pastures, the interpretation is not that he made him lie down, right? It wasn't some authoritarian thing that he did. It was God settled him. And y'all, that when I first read that, I like sobbed, because when we are in the midst of our pain and people try to gloss over us, they try to throw like, oh, joy come in the morning. Oh, the time to grieve, a time to laugh. They don't want to really give us the time. They want us to actually come over it. Like, oh, well, now you got your miracle, Kendra. Oh, well, Lauren, now you're remarried, versus being able to know that in the middle of my pain, I needed someone to sit with me and say, this hurts. You're crying, so I'm going to cry too. This hurts. You don't have anything to say, so I don't have anything to say either. But I'm with you. I'm here with you. And learning how to do that. In the middle of someone's deepest sorrowful moment, learning how to just sit with them. I might not have the words. I might not know exactly what to say, but I'm available. And learning how to not gloss over pain and learning how to just be available is a gift from God.
And
And
I
so,
think that, sorry,
no, go ahead.
in what you just said, learning how to not gloss over pain, because pain is a part of everybody's story.
Yes.
Pain was a part of the story of Jesus. Like, there's pain all throughout the Bible. And when there's lessons to learn in our pain, and that if you don't ever have pain, how can beauty come from ashes if nothing ever burns down around you? And no, and you know, a lot of times, Kendra, Coach, your story was private. It might be different, but you know, everybody would be like, "Oh, you're so strong. Oh, you're so this, you're so that." It's like, I feel anything but strong. Like, I don't want to be strong. Like, can someone take this from me, please? You know? And I think that, but in pain and in those moments, I'm not, it changed me. I'm not the same person. Like, in that darkness, I found so much hope, so much redemption. And those people that were intentional, I can honestly say that the people that were intentional in my grief are the only people who are still a part of my story today.
Wow. Wow. And you know what I think is beautiful about that is from the first Christmas to now, what is this Christmas going on, Lauren? How many Christmases?
This will be number 7.
Does it get easier?
It does. And I wrote about it recently and actually shared it because there's always these dual moments, you know, where you're happy and you're sad all at the same time. Or, you know, and I'll just share this quick story on Thanksgiving. You know, I'm remarried. My husband was actually my childhood friend. We all grew up together. We all knew each other. He knew Anthony. It's a happy, sad story, right? And Sawyer, who is just, I don't know, he's just a deep emotional person, probably based on his life story. But he came and he was like, "I want to wear a tie for Thanksgiving." And I'm like, "Oh my God, I don't even know if we have a tie that fits you," yada, yada. And we were just trying to get ready for Thanksgiving dinner. And John went in his closet and he pulled out a tie. And he was like, "My dad gave me this tie when I was 4 years old. This is the first tie that my dad ever gave me." And I'm just like, "Oh my God," you know, like, and he's going to tie this tie around my son's neck, our son's neck. And so I was so emotional in that moment. Like, this is such a beautiful moment. Like, this man just, not only does he love me, but he truly loves Sawyer. And it was just a beautiful moment. But just how I was feeling all that, my mind immediately switched to, Anthony loved ties, y'all. Like, the knot had to be right, the length had to be right. And it was like, God, he's missing this, you know?
Wow.
And so it's always these dual moments where, you know, you're happy for what's going on in front of you, but in the back of your mind, there's this heaviness or this sadness. But somehow there's beauty in that, you know, it's until you've lived it. And everybody experiences dual moments, you know, but grief is full of them. And, you know, and I'm sure, Kendra, you can, in your journey, you know, if I don't know your family, but if a close friend became pregnant, you're happy for them, right? You are excited about that. That's happy news. But you have your own pain, and it's like you have those own questions. And that's another dual moment where it's like, you know, you're excited, but then and you're not necessarily, you might not answer the question, you know, why me? Why not me yet? But it's still like that longing in your heart, like,
Yes.
this is what I want. And so
Yes.
those dual moments just, they're magnified during the holidays, I feel like.
Yeah. Kendra, can we talk about that? Do you feel like your journey with infertility magnified during the holidays?
It definitely did, or around, you know, just big functions. And I can relate to the dual emotions, because I have a lot of what I could deem nieces, nephews, you know, friends having babies who I absolutely love and adore. And I've always been overly excited whenever, my friends had babies. It was just me. And so it wasn't necessarily the why not me, but like the win. Okay, like, oh, they're having a baby. Oh, maybe if I get pregnant this time, then my baby has somebody to play with, or
Yeah.
things of that nature. But the holidays, it was difficult. And I know, like, I'm so grateful for Alex because I think we kind of helped keep each other. We just talked in hope and in hope, like, um, here's another Christmas, just me and you. We got two stockings. Let's go travel to the family because we don't necessarily have our family, here yet. Just living, as I told you before, for me, it just became a norm. That
Oh, yeah.
disappointment just became a norm. So I just functioned through that. It was really a moment of someone giving a glimpse of hope that kind of pulled me out of that.
Who gave
And
you that glimpse of hope? Or like tell me about that glimpse of hope, because that's kind of what I want us to lean into. What does it mean to rebuild beautiful, or to rebuild hope again, even in the midst of pain? What does that look like?
yeah, so just identifying, that there is an issue, and infertility is broad.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a male's issue or a female's issue. It could be a timing issue. And for Alex and I, it wasn't an issue with Alex, and it wasn't an issue with me. And the doctors are just like, we don't necessarily know. You have this, he has this, but you're not conceiving. So we can try these different measures. But I was ignorant to the different measures that we could take, or just knowing that I wasn't by myself, or just knowing that it was okay that I was in that space. Um, me and my husband laugh at Pastor Jen a lot because Pastor Jen, she comes and she's like, it was a few different situations, but she's just like, so what are you doing? Or why are you still here? Why are you still doing that? And we're just like, I don't know. I'm just sad. I just don't know why this isn't happening. I don't know. But Pastor Jen actually was the first one who was like, so, have you gone to the doctor? I'm like, no. And I think I would just, I did a visit then, but I never followed up. But again, my pastor and mentor, she provided like resources, doctors' names and things like that. And so we did go see a doctor who was able to walk us through different options that were available to be with child. And there are plenty of options available to conceive. So if you want a child today, let me know. Dr. Y is amazing. But
Yeah.
that it for me, I can't even go in depth of what it is because I was numb. I was completely numb to to living in living in disappointment. And I can say that I was able to build myself during that time, even though it sounds different from that. But I was able to build myself. I was able to build trust and find out what that looks like to grow in trust. Because as you said, Lauren, it's so easy to say it and people will throw it at you like, just trust God, it's gonna happen. I'm like, yeah, it's gonna happen, but not knowing what that looks like or what that feels like and what it takes to get there.
Now, let me tell you something. This is why I think Kendra keeps saying I asked her or I did things different. Like I was inquisitive about certain things, and then Lauren stated it too. She said she went to grief counseling. Kendra, you said you went to a doctor. One of the things I think believers do too many times is try to gloss over the realities with faith. And
Yeah,
faith, actually having faith, is a reality, but you
yeah,
cannot gloss over like things that you need. Like
yes.
you cannot be like, oh, I'm just trusting God. And it's like, well, have you gone to the doctor? Because that's trusting God too.
And you can't put limits on just as I said, we have to build relation and also what that looks like is outside of our finite mind. So a
Correct.
lot of people, if it didn't happen the way they think it should happen or the way it happened for them, then they think it's not another way for it to happen, or they
Correct.
think that it's not of God for it to happen. Because the conception of my daughter, God was in every step of that
Every
process.
step of it.
Every
Every
step of that
step of
process.
it. and the importance of seeking help. And that's kind of what I wanted to make sure. And I feel like so many times, people do things like, oh, I'm blessed and highly favored. All I need is me and the Lord. And it's like, well, wait a minute, you're depressed, actually.
Yeah.
You're not blessed and highly favored. You're really sad right now. I need you to go see a counselor. You're sick. You're sick for whatever reason. And go to see a doctor to see what's wrong. Don't try to gloss over it. And what is my babe? If you're on here, it's called spiritual bypassing. That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. We try to spiritually bypass really real things and just try to just like, just God. When you actually dig into scripture, you will find so many human moments there where God is in our humanity. And you will be able to say, oh God, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be human. Thank you for doctors. Thank you for counselors. Thank you for medicine. I don't know. There are certain journeys that we go on where it's like suddenly medicine is a sin. And I'm like, since when? You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it. Science does some weird stuff, but even holistic science that everybody's suddenly now going back to is a little weird at times. So it's like, don't be weird. Just let us there are human moments in scripture that allows us to feel, it allows us to live, it allows us to grow, it allows us to struggle. And I think the pains of infertility and even the pains of loss and widowhood, if we allow ourselves to come right into the middle of that, we will find God there. And it's a beautiful
and I think
thing.
that what you were saying is sometimes it's easier as Christians to put God in that box and just be like, well, in his time, we'll follow his plan. But when we dig into it, it's hard to do the work. It's hard to pick up the phone and admit like, okay, well, I guess I need a doctor, or I guess I need to go to grief counseling, and so because then it falls on us. It's no longer like, oh, the Lord, but God is he puts those people in our lives. I can't tell you how many times like Pastor Jen reached out to me in my inbox, and I got to the point where I messaged her and was like, I just want you to know I'm reading your messages, but I just don't have anything to say right now. Okay. And she was like, I can see that you read them. I don't need you to, I'm here if you need me. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, she has no idea like what I could pour on her at the moment. But then in those moments, just like with my husband now, he was one of the hundreds of people that hit my inbox and was like, I've always been a good listener. I'm here if you need to talk. And I'm like, okay. But people say those things, but do they really mean it? But the people that really meant it, when I reached out to them, they're still here. Like, and that's just a part of my story. And when I look back, and I'm sure, Kendra, when you start to look back, I think, in the blur of the first year of your child's life, it's like when they turn year and you look back over that year, you're going to see so many pieces. You're going to see, oh, in this small detail, that was God. He did this and he did that. And just in a rainbow, my son talking about a construction site with the rainbow, that was God. It was just, the way he orchestrates our lives is just, we do our lives and ourselves a disservice when we put them in that little box.
Yes.
We absolutely do.
Yeah, and I told you all earlier, that was our line. Oh, when in God's timing, but not knowing what that looks like and not giving ourselves space to embrace what that timing looks like. It's bigger, it's bigger than just spewing it out. And a lot of times we just get in that habit of just, this is what you're supposed to say, or this will cover us. This will cover what we don't know, what we don't understand, as opposed to seeking God on those levels or seeking God in those levels. But what I really want to do is to know, or to let people know that there is hope.
Yes.
That there is hope. So despite what it looks like or what it feels like, and I mean that in every sense of the form, you see that cycle, or you see other people, in certain situations, you see happy couples, you see people with kids, or you see people who haven't lost loved ones. And then you think that what you see is your end all be all, but it's not. There's hope, there is peace, there's direction, there's comfort, and there is support. There is support there. Although you got people that's, saying anything that comes to mind, there are people that care, and there are people that are there for you. There are people that's there to listen. A lot of times, because just like Lauren, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know why we didn't conceive. So for me, it's like, okay, I don't know. I know we want this. I know we pray for this. I know it's been prophesied. I know I've seen it, but it's not here. I don't know why. I don't know what to say. I don't know why we don't have a kid, or just being open, just being available for people if they want to talk, if they want to get their feelings out, if they want direction, if they want assistance, if they want just to know, your story. I think that is beneficial, but just to know or wake up and live in the fact that there's hope, and being in hope, and as opposed to living in disappointment, because there is another side to what seems like may not be a good thing.
Yeah. And I think it's important to know that even in disappointment, it's like you have a right to live in a little bit of disappointment, right? You have a right to sit in and be grieful that you lost your husband, to be disappointed that another time you did not get pregnant, and not to gloss over it. People will try you, right? Like, oh, well, thank God you didn't lose him like to this, or, well, thank God he went swiftly, it was so sudden. Thank God for that, thank God, that you're able to do this with the baby, thank God you're still here and you're healthy. And it's like, that doesn't help me now. And so I want anybody listening today to be able to sit in your pain and be validated that your story matters, your pain and disappointment matter. Not only do they matter in this setting, but it matters to God, and really being able to hone in on that. I know people are so afraid of what it means to be mad at God, like, oh, you can't question God. It's like, well, what do you mean you can't question someone you're in relationship with? Yes. It's like, you do have to be able to ask questions. God, why? Maybe you won't get the answer, but you need to be able to feel safe in asking the question. You need to be able to feel the safety of being able to say, God, I am upset, disappointed, and sad, and being able to live there and allowing God and the Holy Spirit to walk you out of it. I think that's what's most important that I want people to get out of here, is the hope in Christ Jesus, and even the validation of our pains. And it's like, your story, your trauma, your pain does matter to God. In this holiday season, I do think it's important to find things that bring you joy, to find things that bring you peace, and to learn how to live sometimes in a new normal. That first Christmas, Lauren, when you saw the rainbow, maybe you had to decide, what, this Christmas, I got to do things a little bit different. I got to change the narrative on what me and these boys normal looks like, because it was so sudden. Kendra, maybe some of your holiday seasons where it's like, it's just me and Alex, you had to learn how to live in the disappointment, simultaneously living in joy. And I think it's so important that we learn that. It's so important that we are able to do that and feel that. The disappointment, when I'm like thinking, I was reading this morning about what it means when your hope is not there, right? When you're living in a disappointment, because the book I'm reading is about a woman who's living with the autoimmune disease, And so she's like, I had to lay in bed and realize that even though my body is sick, and even though I'm in disappointment, that God is still with me. And I am not a disappointment because my story is disappointing. That I don't have to be shame-filled because I'm barren, or because I've had to deal with loss. And I think that's what's most important, knowing that God is with us in our pain, not standing with a gavel or pointing a finger saying, well, you deserved it. Ladies, I thank you for being with me today. If anybody has any questions here for my mamas, take some time and put it in the box. And ask them anything. If you have any questions, please put them here. Hey, Janelle, thank you for everybody who's commenting. on this. I hope your holiday season is able to be filled joyfully. I hope all of you guys are able to, find a new normal, get some beauty from the ashes, being able to, get some love and hope during this season. And I wanted us to be able to discuss what it's like when we didn't have it, because I know sometimes we gloss over that because we're like, oh, this is, the most wonderful time of the year, until for many people, it's just not.
Mhm.
It's just not. So I thank you guys for being here. Oh, look, they want to see the baby, and they want to see John. Tell John to get over in here. We want to see John if he's dressed.
I think John is outside tossing the football, but if anybody knows John, this is a little John.
Oh, hey, Zara. Where's Chloe? She's sleeping?
Chloe is with my mother-in-law because Chloe would have been right here the whole time.
Okay, all right.
I should have post my girl today. Alex came home without her, so she's with her mother-in-law.
All right. Alex, are we going to do a male version of this? Oh, maybe. I want to do a mom chat dad edition. So that is something I'm working on. Yeah. So.
And to be on mom chat has given me so much joy, so much life.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. I don't really see many questions, but I hope that this was able to inspire people today. I hope your stories, seeing Lauren, you having.
I have one more thing.
Yeah.
So just because it's kind of not a trigger, but so many people would tell me about a new normal and things like that, so I think I set out to find a new normal, but the fact is that things just are. It's okay if things are never normal again.
I love how you just said that. It's okay.
It's okay if things are not normal again, because really, what is normal?
What is normal? I love that.
Nothing's
write that in the comments. What is normal?
Right?
And it's okay if there's not a new normal.
When you're struggling with having a child, and nothing's normal now that you have a child again. It's not even a new normal. You don't even know what normal is,
Wow.
And
I love that.
So don't set out on a journey to find a new normal. Set out on a journey to embrace all that life is, the disappointment, the joy. Embrace all of it, because that's what Christ wants. That is living life abundantly.
Yes.
Oh man, I'm gonna send you offering off of that. Like, that was good. That was good. That was so good. Y'all should type that in the comments. That was so good.
And even right here at the holidays, you embrace all that it is. Sometimes it's going to be sad. Sometimes it's going to be happy. Sometimes you're going to get frustrated because your long lost cousin said something that you didn't like at dinner, but like that is the beauty of life. You just embrace all of it.
The beauty of life. You embrace all of it in the midst of turmoil, in the midst of trauma, in the midst of pain. Yeah, I love that. I really do love that. Yeah, that was good. Y'all, thanks everybody for tuning in. I do hope you go into this holiday season with joy. Yep. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.